Right now on KGW News at noon, a grand jury hands down an indictment against the man shot by Customs and Border Patrol agents last week. Plus, local lawmakers are exploring legislation to protect people from immigration enforcement tactics used by federal agents. And
it cures immediately, so we can print the entire house that same day.
Researchers say they have developed a new method to build houses faster and more sustainably. And later, Washington's governor is pushing for a new tax aimed at filling funding gaps for schools and small businesses. Your news at noon starts now. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us here at noon. I'm Stephanie Domerat. We begin here at noon with breaking news out of Eugene, where Ducks quarterback Dante Moore just announced in the last 30 minutes he will stay at Oregon for another year. Moore is a sophomore at Oregon, and this was his first season as a starter for the Ducks. Moore threw more than 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, and led the Ducks to the college football playoff semifinal. Experts thought Moore would be a top pick in the NFL draft, but he told ESPN today that his goal is to win a national championship.
When it comes to me coming back, that I'm going to push them, they're going to push me. Of course, when it comes to just O-linemen, running backs, the defense side of the ball, just everybody, we have young talent. This team was very young this year, and through this season, we had a lot of adversity, and we faced a lot. But with this year, it helps us, lead into next year. So I'm excited for this team.
The Ducks also brought in transfer quarterback Dylan Raiola from Nebraska. He's a former five-star quarterback who will likely be the second-string QB for the Ducks. And now to our top story here at noon. Within the last hour and a half, we learned one of the two people shot by Customs and Border Patrol last week has officially been indicted. According to new court documents, a grand jury indicted Luis Nino Moncada on charges of aggravated assault on a federal employee with a weapon. The indictment lists the red Toyota Tacoma truck Nino Moncada allegedly used to ram into an empty rental car Border Patrol agents had been using. Despite Homeland Security saying Nino Moncada has ties to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. So far, none of the charges are gang-related. Nino Moncada is set to appear in court later this afternoon for a detention hearing. Our Kyla Boshi will have those details for us starting today at 4. Also developing this afternoon, some Oregon lawmakers say they are seeing a surge in immigration enforcement. And now they say they're pushing to pass several laws to protect people from tactics used by federal officers. Sunrise reporter Thomas Schultz has the story.
There's a couple different bills we need to talk about here. The first is being introduced by Leslie Munoz, a state representative from Woodburn. Her bill is called the Protect Your Door Act. Essentially what it would do is allow Oregonians to sue individual federal agents who caused them harm. Munoz says the second part of the bill would require the feds to give local authorities a 48-hour notice of ICE raids happening in their area.
Right now, there's a big fear of, people putting on masks or conducting a kidnapping and us thinking that it's a legitimate operation.
In Salem, Representative Sarah Finger McDonald plans on introducing a bill that would mandate schools, colleges, and universities tell their school community when immigration agents are on campus. ICE has made arrests near schools in recent months. In one case, an ICE agent was asked to leave school grounds after telling administrators they were conducting surveillance.
There was a long-standing policy that immigration agents would not target sensitive locations like schools, but that policy has been discarded.
In previous coverage, the Department of Homeland Security told us, quote, ICE is not conducting enforcement operations at or raiding schools, but said the administration would not tie an officer's hands if they need to make an arrest on campus. State Democratic lawmakers are also coming up with a comprehensive agenda on how they plan to continue to push back against ICE operations, as well as ensure Oregon state autonomy is intact. Thomas Schultz, KGW News.
Well, there are also several anti-federal immigration enforcement bills on the docket in Olympia. Among them are two companion bills banning all law enforcement from wearing face coverings when interacting with the public.
Masks are being used to obscure identities, to escalate tensions, to stoke fears, to deny public transparency, and to shield government from accountability. That can't happen here.
Another bill targets Flock, the automatic license plate reader system, which has been criticized in recent months for helping the feds track down people who are in the country illegally. The technology is active in at least 17 jurisdictions in Washington. Meanwhile, city councilors in McMinnville talked about possible steps they could take to try and protect immigrant families. Last night, they heard public testimony. Some high school students say their classmates are worried they or their families will be detained by ICE.
Standing up for immigrant families is not just about policy. It's about humanity, dignity, and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to learn without fear.
Now, one of the options on the table, helping notify families when loved ones are taken by ICE. The leaders acknowledged local police can't interfere with ICE operations, and it's unclear who would gather that information. The council rejected a proposal to ban drone use near public schools, saying it doesn't control airspace. Staff members are now looking into what they can do to legally move forward. And President Donald Trump is once again threatening to withhold federal funding to states that are home to sanctuary cities, including Oregon and Washington. President Trump said federal payments to those jurisdictions will stop as of February 1st, though he didn't say what kind of funding would be impacted. Two of the president's previous efforts to cut funding to sanctuary cities and states were shut down by the courts. And in Eugene, a federal court began hearing arguments this morning over the Trump administration's demand that Oregon hand over voter registration data. Both parties began making their cases around 9:30 this morning. The administration is suing Oregon after Secretary of State Tobias Reed refused to hand over voter data when they requested it last summer. The administration wanted voter names, birth dates, addresses, and driver's license numbers or partial Social Security numbers. Reed said he didn't trust that the administration was capable of protecting Oregonians' data. Turning now to your weather this afternoon, looking outside from our Rose City Sky Cam over downtown Portland. Look at all that fog out there. It also was a very chilly start to the morning. Let's check in now with Rod Hill with a look at your weather. When will this fog clear for us, Rod?
Well, to be clear, the fog is gone. Now we're looking at low clouds kind of kissing and nipping at the downtown cityscape. But Stephanie, to your point, it was fog. Now it's lifted. Technically, just low clouds hovering over the buildings in the West Hills. And to your question, I think odds are better that we do not see the sun today here in the Valley. I think everything is pointing toward the fact that if we do clear, it won't be until after 2 p.m. And by that time, it's so late this time of the year, you don't get much warming anyway. I do want to show off where we have it. This is the beautiful sunny sky in Chinook Woods Casino Resort in Lincoln City. 47 degrees, probably going to warm up into the low 50s this afternoon. Now, here is the best tool to track low cloud cover, the visible satellite picture. Look at this fetch from Astoria. It rides up the Columbia and the Kelso. And literally no breaks, Portland, Woodburn, Salem, all the way down to Eugene. And there are no visible signs that this will improve much. In fact, now the Rose City, I said, that's not really fog, but this is still fog. In Salem, you can plainly see the cloud deck is on the ground. Temperature in our capital is 35 degrees. Hadn't had a chance to warm up. Portland is at least warming somewhat. We're at 43. Temperatures show us at most later today. Just look at current temperatures getting up into the mid 40s. Chilly, cloudy, chilly, cloudy, chilly, cloudy. That's your forecast, Stephanie.
Okay, sums it up pretty well there, Rod. Thank you. Let's give you a look at your national headlines this afternoon. A top official for Denmark says fundamental disagreements remain with President Donald Trump over the future of Greenland. Their comments come after a meeting with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio and officials from Greenland at the White House today. Trump has repeatedly called for the U.S. to take over Greenland from Denmark. The two sides did agree this morning to create a working group to discuss ways to work through disagreements over who controls Greenland. Greenland residents and public officials oppose the idea of U.S. control and would prefer to remain a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark. The U.S. says it's moving into the next phase of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff made the announcement on social media, saying this new phase will focus on demilitarization, establishing a technocratic government, and rebuilding Gaza. Neither Witkoff nor the White House provided details on this new transitional Palestinian government. Witkoff added that the U.S. expects Hamas to turn over the final deceased hostage to uphold its end of the ceasefire. The FBI searched the home of a Washington Post reporter this morning after the reporter wrote a piece about tips she had received from federal workers impacted by President Trump over the last year. Attorney General Pam Bondi said the reporter was reporting classified data obtained from a Pentagon contractor. The Washington Post says the raid was part of a larger investigation into a Maryland system administrator accused of taking home classified documents. And those are your national headlines. And back here in Multnomah County now, where some homeless shelters will soon be closing as commissioners prioritize long-term housing instead. Though some who work in the shelters say it shouldn't be one or the other, and closing shelters could mean more people end up on the streets. This idea came from a 175-page report. Between July 1st of 2024 and June 30th of 2025, the county's Homelessness Services Department reviewed 31 shelters. The findings point to closing some shelters and using that money for housing programs instead. The report suggests more people would be housed that way without raising costs amid budget cuts.
So we can't shelter our way out of the crisis. It's important that we ensure we fund the full continuum.
We're good at housing people that are housing ready, but there's a growing number of folks that come into all of our shelters each day that need far more support than what we're able to give them.
As of now, we know of just 2 county-run shelters that are closing in March, and the money for those shelters will instead go to housing programs. It's unclear how many of the people staying in those shelters could end up on the streets.